I'm Courtney DeWinter. I'm one of the founding members of Canada Geese Protection Colorado. Excuse me, and I'm a longtime Denver resident. I've been here for 40 years, small business owner, and I have a history of animal advocacy. Most recently, I worked as part of a group called Colorado Horse Care Food Bank. So this is near and dear to my heart. So let's talk about what happened in June. So when citizens woke up in late June of 2019 to find the geese completely missing from our parks and that they had been captured and taken away to be killed, without giving any time to respond or protest, we formed Canada Geese Protection Colorado. And within a week, we started protesting, and then we started investigating. So we've now completed 8 months of investigation, and before I talk about our findings, I want to make the point that Scott Gilmore is a longtime wildlife biologist, as is the Denver wildlife manager, Vicki Vargas Madrid. So the point is they should all know best practices in wildlife management, which I think you'll find they don't. So here are some highlights of our research. First and foremost, Denver has not followed the basic principle of wildlife management, which is first conducting a census. Denver claims that there were 5,000 resident geese, and there are some vague references that Colorado Parks and Wildlife helped them with some population surveys at some point at some parks. But Denver Parks has not produced any actual proof of the actual goose count. And this is a missing link, because you have to have an accurate population count before you can develop a viable wildlife management plan. So this first step also is needed to accurately gauge how many goose eggs need to be oiled for population control. And as Marlon Rice had said, egg oiling is the #1 strategy for keeping the goose population down in our parks. When you oil an egg, it prevents the embryo from growing, and then the egg does not hatch. Switch. Okay, so this takes me to our second finding. Let's bring up the egg oiling schedule. Okay, so this is the egg oiling schedule that is from page 7 of the Denver Goose Management Guide dated June 2019. And the highlights of this are that for 12 of the past 17 years, Denver Parks has done little to no egg oiling. In this process of managing the population, Denver Parks has failed miserably. So from 2015 to 2018, the numbers were higher, but Denver still only oiled roughly 10 to 30% of the goose eggs. So is it any wonder why the resident goose population in Denver Parks has ballooned? And when Denver officials say, and we've heard this many times, we had to kill the geese, nothing else works, don't believe them. So Denver Parks created the problem, and our position is if you created the problem, you should fix it, and not with killing. Our research also has allowed us to debunk what you've been told by the city to kill geese. So, myth #1, geese are responsible for E. coli in Denver rivers, so we had to kill them. Now, as I just explained, the resident goose population boomed over the last 17 years because Denver Parks didn't oil the goose eggs at rates that would have kept the population down. In some years, they didn't oil them at all. So if urban geese were really responsible for E. coli levels in Denver rivers, the E. coli levels would have increased as the population increased, and that is not the case. So this Denver water quality report that you're looking at says very clearly that E. coli levels in the river did not change at all over 15 years. So geese are not responsible for E. coli. Excuse me. The myth #2 is that geese need to be killed because they caused all the algae blooms in the park lakes. And this is so misleading. The CDC reports that the #1 cause of algae blooms is global warming. The warmer the water, the more algae blooms you get. And on a local level, we we find that most people do not know that algae blooms are occurring in our park lakes because Denver Parks and Denver Water is pouring what's called reuse water into those lakes. And there's a delicate term for reuse water. It's delicately described as nutrient rich. So those nutrients that are still in that water that hasn't been properly cleaned is what's feeding the algae blooms. Now, on a side note, reuse water is really alkaline. It has killed hundreds of Denver trees in Denver parks. And our tax dollars have been used to replace those trees, and the city will waste more tax dollars when the replacement trees die as well. So water conservation is admirable and it's needed, but reuse water is killing trees and wasting taxpayer dollars. It's not the right way to do it. On a final note, do geese contribute to algae blooms? Probably a little, but the top two reasons why we have algae blooms in these lakes are global warming and also the reuse water that is nutrient rich. So the third myth is that killing geese is okay because we're feeding the meat to the needy. Denver has and will again this year kill geese and feed goose meat to the needy, and that's designed to help you all feel better about the slaughters. But consider this, the 2019 Denver pesticide report has a long list of all the toxic chemicals that have been poured on Denver parks in 2019. What you see here is just a fraction of what's been poured on the parks and in the water. Now we're going to take a look at the label of Coutrine Plus. Coutrine Plus is what's being sprayed on the surfaces of Denver Park lakes to deal with the algae blooms. Grab that? So the hazards are huge and many. If you get it on your clothes, you have to remove your clothes immediately and take a shower for 20 minutes. If you swallow it, you have to call poison control and get to a doctor fast. And if you inhale Coutrine Plus, which is being sprayed through the air onto the surface of the water, it can cause respiratory arrest, and they recommend that you get ready for CPR. Now, Denver's urban geese are eating grass treated with Roundup and other toxic chemicals. The geese are swimming in and drinking water treated with Coutrine Plus. The meat of resident urban geese is not like the meat of a goose that just flew down from Saskatchewan. It's tainted, and the only place it belongs is in a landfill. Now, myth number 4, we can't clean the parks. Now, many citizen groups have asked the city to clean the parks, and our research shows that the #1 complaint why geese are proving to be a problem in cities and counties all over the United States is because of the goose waste in the parks. Now, people have asked Scott Gilmore and the Parks Department to clean, and Scott Gilmore has flatly refused. So we researched turf cleaning machines, only to find that Denver already owns some turf cleaning equipment. This unit is the Smithco Sweepstar 60 turf cleaner. So far, we know that Denver has 2 of them. We think there are more. And this unit would provide an opportunity to conduct a pilot program for actually doing some turf cleaning. But it is both, disappointing and questionable that city officials have declined to ever mention they had these devices or units already in stock. Okay, so Canada Geese Protection Colorado is in the process of building a humane goose management plan based on science, research, and best practices with both short-term and long-term strategies. Now, the highlights of that are that we need to conduct a population count first and foremost, then we need to start banding resident birds to identify them, then we need to start deploying egg oiling at much higher rates, then we need to deploy turf cleaning, and we need to start switching out the turf over time, not only because of goose waste, but because of water conservation. The main point is that killing doesn't work. It wastes taxpayer dollars. And when you kill them, you'll have to kill them again and again. That means that within 3 years, the city of Denver will have spent close to $500,000 of your tax dollars on a failed strategy. So it comes down to short-term versus long-term. And ultimately, what happens here depends on whether you all are willing to hold Denver public officials accountable or not. Thanks very much.